He is boxing's heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali, and she is the former Attorney General of the United States, Janet Reno. He is the award-winning film and television actor, Michael J. Fox. They, along with many thousands of other Americans, are learning to live meaningful and productive lives while dealing with the effects of Parkinson's disease. Now, I'm Mike Goupel, and I'm pleased to have with us today two representatives of the Parkinson's Disease Association of San Diego. To my left, we have Catherine Rodriguez, and Catherine is the Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Parkinson's Disease Association. And next to her is Cindy Hedgecock, and Cindy is a former board member of that same organization. So Catherine, Cindy, welcome to PACE TV, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Now, Catherine, for my part and for our viewers, tell us, please, what is specifically Parkinson's disease?
It's a chronic neurological disorder where the brain quits producing dopamine, which is a neuron that controls the transmission for movement.
I see. And when were you first diagnosed with
I was
Parkinson's?
diagnosed on May the 10th, 1999.
So it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Now, did that diagnosis affect you personally and your plans for the future?
Well, obviously they changed dramatically. I was only 43 years old, and at the time my future plans were, I was a school principal, and my future plans were to go on in the world of education. I was working 60, 70 hours a week, and that had to change. I basically worked for another year and a half and felt that I could not work and keep my health. So I obviously chose my health.
So you made that decision to pare down, if you will, your work schedule to fit your needs.
Correct.
Now tell us, how did that affect your family and loved ones, especially when you were first diagnosed?
Well, I remember the day I was diagnosed, and I was leaving the neurologist's office, heading back to work, and I called my husband on the cell phone and told him, "Well, I have Parkinson's, dear." And I'll never forget his response, and that was, "Are you going to die?" And at that time, I realized that neither he nor I knew a whole lot about what Parkinson's was. And so that's how I told my husband. My children and parents were, I mean, it was fairly easy. I sat down and just said, and told them what it was. 10 days after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I became a grandmother. And as my grandchildren started to grow up over the past 8 years, telling them was a little bit harder to put into words that a grandchild would understand. Mm-hmm. And so, taking my skills as a school teacher, I wrote a book for each of my grandchildren. It's called My Grandmother Has Parkinson's Disease.
How interesting, how interesting.
And it includes photos of the family and just general information about what Parkinson's is at a level that a child would understand. Mm-hmm.
And that worked well, I'm sure.
It did. Yeah. It also gives them something to hold on to and to look at when they have a question or something. They both have their own copies that they can read.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you've been diagnosed now since 1999, so this is not what they call a fatal disease. It's a disease that's manageable, and I'm sure that was part of your discussion with your grandchildren.
Yes. Yes, I told them that grandmother was not going to die from Parkinson's. She was going to get slower and probably move more, but I was going to be here, and I promised my granddaughter I would make her wedding dress. So and she's only 6, and she's going to college before she gets married. So we have a ways to go.
So would you say basically that your family is dealing well with it?
Yes, my family is very supportive. I have a very close family, and they're very supportive and helpful.
And one other question, Catherine, when you talked about paring down your work schedule, mm-hmm. what kind of effect, if any, were there with your colleagues and associates on the job, if you will?
Well, in my case, there really is no such thing as a part-time principal. And so I went on in the field and did some work for an educational management company. But the staff that I had when I was working were very supportive and very kind and helpful with me. But I did have to move on. I could not continue working.
And that was a decision you made.
It was a decision I made.
Now, at what point in your diagnosis and your dealing with the disease did you get involved with the Parkinson's Disease Association of San Diego?
Actually, it was the first day.
Really?
Yeah. The neurologist told me I had Parkinson's, and as I had said, I didn't know much about it. My husband didn't know much about it. And neurologists are very bright people, but I needed more than a neurological discussion of what this disease was. And I looked up in the phone book under Parkinson's disease, found the Parkinson's Disease Association of San Diego, and called them up and said, help. And I received books, I received videos, and information that I could understand that helped me move forward with living my life.
Wonderful. And that was 1999.
Yes.
Now, before we get into the specifics of the association, let's hear from Cindy. And Cindy, tell us how Parkinson's disease affected your life.
Well, very differently than Catherine. It was my father who had Parkinson's disease. He was diagnosed when I was still in college, so it was quite a while ago. He was almost 50, and I'm an only child of very supportive, very protective parents, and I was protected from the day-to-day living, first of all because I wasn't living at home, and second because they protected me a great deal at the time. My father told me that he had Parkinson's disease, and my reaction was the self-centered one, am I going to get it? As well as trying to understand what it was. And he was reassuring, said he didn't think so, that they didn't think that there was a familial connection. And then I proceeded from it's all about me to trying to understand what was happening with my father. And not very much was. He had a small tremor at the time. I remember him, he's gone now, very fondly. It was always his right finger and it was always moving. And I still see that. But the effects were really to my mother. She was the primary caregiver. I was not at home. And they, as they went on with their lives, decided to retire very quickly. My father found that stress affected his Parkinson's very negatively. And since he was approaching retirement age, as soon as he could retire, they did, and they moved to northern Washington, so I saw even less of them. He had a neurologist in Washington. When we saw each other, he tried to explain to me what was going on with Parkinson's, that there was, again, he was not going to die of it, that he had a long life ahead of him. And my father focused very much on preserving his lifestyle as I went through my life, and he actually introduced me to my husband.
Interesting.
And we got married and had children, and he was very much a part of that. They grew up learning compassion, and as he became less and less mobile, they learned to help him.
Now, was your mom the chief caregiver at
She
that
was
time?
the chief caregiver until they no longer could live independently in Washington, and they came back to San Diego. But when they would come down to visit, to see the children and so on, one of the things they did, although he had a neurologist in Washington, they stopped in and discovered the Parkinson's Disease Association. And that was in its infancy, when we really just had a little closet office in a donated space on Marina Boulevard. And it was maybe 10 by 20. It was a little room stocked with all kinds of information. And my mother came back, and she had all these pamphlets and information. And one of the things that they did as my father got farther into the Parkinson's is he would seek out more people who had Parkinson's that he could learn from.
He was proactive.
He was proactive, and while they were very private people, he thought it was important to learn as much as he could. He was also an engineer and very analytical. So when they discovered the Parkinson's Disease Association of San Diego, and coincidentally Mary Mowry, who was one of the founding members, and she's just wonderful, they found kind of a home, a place where they could ask questions, a place where they felt comfortable and supported with other people who were going through the same experience. And that was really, really helpful, really special.
Now, as far as your own life with your family and your responsibilities at home, how, if, in what way did it affect your everyday routine and your dealing with your own family?
It really didn't, except that I was explaining to my children why Grandpa's hands moved all the time. That was a little bit different. And they just accepted it. That's the way he is. He was a loving, wonderful grandfather who taught them to fish and took them out in the boat and went crabbing. And those are the special times that I remember. And he wanted to be remembered by them as someone who had a lot of fun and tickled them and told them stories. And that didn't stop. He didn't become a different person just because he had Parkinson's disease.
Mostly it's the eye of the beholder. It's the individuals who think that there's something different. The individual themselves, they're still the same people they always were.
That's right.
Now, we talked a little bit about the beginnings of the Parkinson's Disease Association. Now, apparently you got involved, Cindy, through obviously your father, but when did you actively get involved with the everyday runnings, or the board of directors, if you will, of the association?
It actually was after he had passed away. My children were older, and I had more time, and I wanted to remember him in a meaningful way. And I went to the organization and phoned them up and said, I'm interested in becoming involved. Do you have any openings on your board? I'd like to come visit. I'd like to learn more about. I know you're a great organization, and I'd like to learn how I can help more. And that was almost 12 years ago. And I was a member of the board for 10 years and watched it become from a fledgling, very local, very personal organization, but very small, to what it's become today, which is a force in assisting with a cure, and mostly really being support and help for families, the whole family involved with Parkinson's disease.
Let's talk a little bit about that now. Let's talk a little bit about the organization itself. Now, Catherine, you're on the board of directors.
Correct.
And Cindy, you were on the board of directors.
Yes, I was.
But tell us a little bit about how the board is made up, the type of people that are on the board.
The board has a variety. We have both Parkinson's patients, caregivers, and professionals in different areas that help us. People like Cindy, people with financial backgrounds, people that are attorneys, people that are into public relations. So it's a very strong group of individuals that work together as a team to help with Parkinson's here in San Diego.
And what are some of the programs? Obviously, it's non-profit.
Oh, yes.
But tell us a little bit about some of the programs, either one, either Cindy or Catherine, about what goes on. What do you supply the needs? How do you supply the needs that people have? We have two key areas: family services and educational programs. And in family services, we have support groups, and there are 14 of them in San Diego County. And there are support groups that meet for caregivers, for Parkinson's people themselves. There are support groups that are people that are newly diagnosed. So there's a different type of group for each individual. We have another program which I think is really exciting, and it's called the Good Start Program. And it's for newly diagnosed patients, and they go and learn a little bit about just living actively as a Parkinson's patient, going on, working, but, your life as a whole, and that Parkinson's is just a part of it. You're still the same person that you have, and you need to keep moving. That's very interesting, because this might be a good time to take a look at a film clip of 3 individuals that we have that represent basically what you've just said. So let's go take a look at that and see what that looks like.
Sean is a 62-year-old woman who has been playing soccer for 26 years. 3 years ago, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. She continues to play soccer and golf. Kyle is a computer network administrator who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease several years ago. He is married with 2 teenage children. He no longer works. He believes exercise is very therapeutic.
Definitely exercise for me, and I think probably in general for Parkinson's patients, is super important. And that's why things like playing tennis have been really a lifesaver for me. But in addition to that, I go to a gym and work out a couple to 3 times a week, doing light weightlifting and stretching. Try to do a lot of stretching and some cardiovascular on a stair-step machine.
Kyle addressed the benefits of staying active and of keeping a positive attitude.
Well, in general, with Parkinson's, I find I need to keep myself occupied with positive activities that I enjoy and keep me having a positive attitude and positive self-image, because the disease can tend to get you down sometimes, and you need to keep a positive attitude. I'm a member of a Parkinson's support group that I got started going to. It was introduced by a gentleman named Lester Cohen, and he was very helpful to me in the early stages of my disease. We talked a lot and shared stories with each other, and he led the support group, and it's grown quite a bit. We've got a lot of new members, and we go once a month, and it's a very helpful group.
Pat has owned and operated a coffee house for 18 years. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's almost 4 years ago.
You get used to the idea, or maybe you never get used to the idea, but early on, I treated it just like I do everything else in my life. There is an obstacle in my way, and you just learn. You either go over it, you go around it, whatever it takes, life goes on, and you do what you need to do to have quality of life, and that's what I do with every day of my life. Actually, I think I do everything I've always done, and I don't restrict myself. I allow myself to enjoy all the things I've always enjoyed, and I might have to work a little harder as I progress with my Parkinson's, but I still have the desire to live my life not as a person with Parkinson's, but as the person I've always been.
Well, Catherine, that was a wonderful example of the three individuals that we just saw. We saw Sean, Kyle, and Pat, and they've taken control of their lives pretty much as you've described you doing yourself.
Thank you. Sean and Pat are both in a support group that I belong to, and we call ourselves the Dynamic Women, and they definitely represent that well.
Yeah, they did a very good presentation, and basically that's part of what you people do for people living with Parkinson's. You provide programs and let them get along pretty much at their own speed, I would presume.
Correct. The support groups obviously being one. Another that has just started is the financial and legal well-being workshops, because many people, when they get Parkinson's, especially younger people, have a change in career and need information about disabilities, about what to do with a different in your income. So that's another program that we offer.
Now, Cindy, you've seen this organization grow tremendously.
Yes.
Especially the last few years.
Yes.
And we've touched on a few of the programs that you offer, and we've seen some of the results with the three individuals we just saw. Give our audience a pretty broad stroke of all that you can provide the community.
Well, the mission statement of the Parkinson's Disease Association is to improve the quality of life for those affected by Parkinson's. And affected means the whole family, because just one person doesn't get Parkinson's. In effect, the whole family gets it. It's something that the whole family needs to participate in understanding and in helping. And the primary caregiver, of course, has the biggest responsibility, especially as the disease progresses. It becomes more and more of a gift, a burden, to assist that person in carrying on their lives with as little disruption as possible. One of the programs that the association provides is called in-home care. There's caregiver training and there's respite care. And when the caregiver kind of reaches the end of his or her rope, Parkinson's disease will step in and say, hey, take a day off, we'll do some caregiving. We also do transportation assistance in getting patients to and from their appointments. There are some wonderful educational symposia that are provided where families, patients can come and ask questions of specialists, of people who have been through the process, who know what's coming. That's the scariest thing for families, I think, is not knowing what's going to happen down the road. And the Parkinson's Disease Association can provide that picture, can really help. Because activities do become more limited. Things become more difficult as the disease gets farther along. Children can help, and they need to learn how. So the thing that's grown the most in the organization from our early just information and referral service, providing the brochures and the books and the videos, has been much more of a hands-on assistance. So it's been exciting to watch.
I'll bet. Now, just for additional information, would you estimate the amount of people that are dealing with Parkinson's disease, people that are affected by it, here in San Diego, throughout the country, throughout the world? Just give us an idea of how vast this is.
Well, Catherine was saying earlier, we're approaching a million patients here in San Diego County.
In the United States.
Oh, okay, in the United States. I apologize.
50,000.
But I think we're hearing more about it because people who are in the forefront and in the public view are coming forth and saying they have Parkinson's. The Pope had it. Michael J. Fox, for example, has been wonderful in explaining what it's about and in raising money for research, which is one of the things we also do. We're trying very hard to assist the researchers who are searching very hard for a cure and for a cause. We still don't know what causes Parkinson's disease, why people get it.
Now, Catherine, we have another clip from a physician. And I don't know a specific specialty, but obviously you do. And maybe this is a good time to take a look and see what he has to say. Could you introduce him to our audience?
Sure. The neurologist that you were speaking of is Dr. Ron Kobayashi, and he's on the board of directors of the Parkinson's Disease Association and an expert in the field of Parkinson's. And his video will talk to us a little bit about the research and the medical aspects of the Parkinson's.
Wonderful. Let's take a look at that.
Parkinson's disease has had an enormous surge over the past decade, and I'd like to briefly review some of these because they provide great hope for our patients, their families, and caregivers. One of the major areas that I think we should highlight is the increase in interest and knowledge about Parkinson's disease. We've seen not only a great deal of research, but public awareness of Parkinson's disease. And this has helped enormously to give hope to our patients and their families. This has gone hand in hand with research advances, where developments in technology and in scientific investigation have shown us much more than we knew before. We have new medications constantly coming out that provide treatment for complications and other problems that have been very difficult to control. Surgical advances have also been quite notable, and many patients are now benefiting from some of these developments, especially deep brain stimulation. So I think from my perspective as a movement disorder specialist dealing with Parkinson's patients, that there is a great deal of reason to be hopeful about Parkinson's disease. This is based upon advances and about things that we think will be available to our patients in the near future.
Now, that was very interesting. And Catherine, apparently there's hope out there. There are things happening every day. The good doctor seems to indicate that we have reason to be optimistic.
We are, and there is a lot of research in the areas of stem cells and genes. There's new surgeries available, new medications. So yes, there's a lot of hope.
That's wonderful. Now, Cindy, we talked a little bit about the programs that your organization offers. You hit upon the financial help. Can you want to touch on that just a little bit more?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people want to help in the search for a cure, search for the cause, and a lot of the research that's going on. So that takes money. And many San Diegans have left a lasting legacy by donating money to Parkinson's disease. We have an annual fundraising event with a really fun auction, and that's a wonderful way to donate to Parkinson's. Ongoing donation programs, but the enduring legacy is starting to create for us an endowment fund, which is really something that will carry on the program for a long time. We also need volunteers within the office and for some of the programs, so that's another way that people can help the organization.
So
very
anyone out there
directly.
would like to volunteer can pick up a phone, give you a call, and
That's right. That's right.
volunteer for whatever capacity.
And we
that
have the
you need to.
Parkinson's Walk every spring too. So
A Parkinson's Walk. Is
you
that a
can-
fundraiser?
It's a fundraiser, and you can get together with your with the Parkinson's patient and walk together as a team and raise some money for research and really help the organization. So
That
that's a
sounds
fun way
great.
too.
That sounds fine. Now, Catherine, any words that you'd like to pass on to maybe someone who has been recently diagnosed or knows someone who's been recently diagnosed, and just give them some idea of what you dealt with and how you dealt with it?
Well, I think there's 4 key things. You need to have a positive and upbeat attitude, and equip yourself with knowledge. Do some research. Find out what's out there. Partner with your doctor, your caregiver, and the patient as a team, and then take action.
Like you did. Pick up that phone and find out what you need to find out.
Exactly.
Well, I can't tell you how much we appreciate both you ladies taking time out of your busy day. I know, Cindy, you're a very busy woman. I know, Catherine, you've got a zillion things that you could be doing. But coming here and explaining what you do to our audience, we can't thank you enough.
Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome, and I wish you all good success, good luck, and carry on with your endeavors.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you again sometime.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.